If something popular exists, there's a good chance a cartoon adaptation will eventually be made of it. Books, movies, TV shows, even toys are all common sources for animated series and features. But in 1996, a cartoon debuted drawing on the most unlikely of subjects, the world-famous Las Vegas magic act of Siegfried and Roy. The duo were best known for their spectacle-filled stage magic, featuring their signature white tigers at the then Mirage Hotel and Casino. Developing a show based on a magic act is an unusual premise to create a cartoon for, but not impossible. Stories exploring their daily lives as they try to balance their unique work and celebrity could be entertaining. Or maybe following fictionalized versions of their younger selves going on adventures around the world would make for a good show. But much like their act, their first foray into animation totally subverted expectations. It didn't take place in Vegas and had little to do with their onstage personas at all. In fact, the only significant correlation between the two stars and their cartoon counterparts was in name only. Instead, the show titled Siegfried and Roy, Masters of the Impossible, took place in a fantasy realm, where they existed alongside mythical gods, malevolent evil spirits, and real magic, about as far away as you could get from the real-life performers themselves. The concept was quite the departure from anything fans that were familiar with the pair's routines would anticipate from the twosome. Would this radical change be too jarring for them to become fans of the cartoon too? And on the other side, would their names being attached to the project be enough to entice younger viewers to watch? If the show's 4-episode lifespan is any indication, it did not attract the number of viewers it wanted. But was that due to the show focusing on name recognition over quality storytelling? The 4 episodes run together to tell a single story, so going forward, I'll be referring to this series as a movie. And with that said, let's reveal the secrets of Siegfried and Roy, Masters of the Impossible. We're introduced to the world of Seroti through various images of its many diverse lands. Purple clouds filling the night sky, floating islands, and literal flying ships with wings paint a picture of the truly fantastical world we're about to encounter. It's certainly beautiful looking, but devoid of magic, due to the Titan god Loki stealing all the world's good magic and locking away the evil in the Oracle of Phrygia. They definitely didn't take the easy route by writing a generic storyline just to collect a paycheck. There's a substantial amount of lore presented within the first minute that's already captured my attention, and has me eager to see just how they're going to incorporate the magicians into this world. Soon after, we meet Roy and his white tiger Manticore running through brush in a shot that moves from behind them to their side in an unanticipatedly nice angle, but am more than happy to see that kind of effort. And speaking of the art, it is fantastic. It's produced by Deke Entertainment, who have a mixed track record with the art in some of their other cartoons, but I like these human models, and the environments in turn are just as good, even sneaking in some fluid animation and extra beautiful shots and scenes here and there. Roy trips, dropping the Book of Seroti, which chronicles the Year of Darkness, when Loki stole the world's magic, and also contains the last remnants of that magical knowledge. He passes it off to his trained falcon Jupiter, instructing him to wait in the next town over. And the more I describe this, the less I can believe this is a Siegfried and Roy story. Not even 2 minutes in, and they've gone to the ends of the earth, creating a unique and original universe for this show. Roy and Manticore are hunted by King Midas, who pursues the tiger due to its ability to shapeshift, so that the king may harness the magic for himself. Little does anyone know, Loki looks on from afar, and he is terrifying. He has horns, 2 sets of wings, and a pair of eyes and a nose on his chest, looking wicked in a biblical way. It looks like somebody created a character, and once it was done, kept adding more and more to it, and has the kind of look that would be perfect as an action figure. The weirdness keeps on coming when they arrive in a town made up of strange beings, such as a woman with a reptile's tail carrying a scepter, a woman who looks like a steampunk robot, and a man with a furry arm sharing a chained pair of glasses with his pet thing. All I can think about when I see these people is how fun it must have been to work as a character designer for this show. Riding into town are Siegfried and Rumpelstiltskin, the same Rumpelstiltskin from the classic fairy tale who spins wheat into gold, but now can't, due to the lack of magic in the world. Siegfried runs a stage magic show with Rumpelstiltskin, who I'm going to be calling Rumpel for short going forward, as his assistant. Siegfried is plenty full of himself, advertising as even a greater sorcerer than Merlin, though he can't perform anything other than elaborate stage tricks with no access to actual magic. His arrival gives short-lived hope to a mysterious cloaked woman named Estella, who later reveals herself to be the princess of Seroti. If there's one aspect of the show I wish had been executed with real consideration, it's introducing the characters by name. It seems like a given to tell the audience your characters' names, and they do fine in that regard with Siegfried, but we don't actually learn Estella or Loki's names until halfway through the movie, and they're major characters. I don't know if they forgot to write in lines introducing everybody, and you won't have a problem getting characters confused with one another, but there is a bit of a disconnect watching major characters do things whose names you don't know. Siegfried's incessant flirting only disappoints her and angers the tavern keeper, who yells,
"I said work the stage, not my customers, you two-bit conjurer."
Brought to tears by her failure to find a true magician, Roy overhears her and suggests she search the Oracle of Frehia. She warns against it, claiming she's actually trying to prevent her father from releasing the dark magic held within, which is why she's trying to find someone with magic to make it harder to release the evil. Their conversation is interrupted by another unexpectedly cool shot, this time of a coin rolling through the tavern to the feet of the king, who offers 500 gold coins to anyone who can capture the white tiger. Siegfried views this as an opportunity to impress the king by turning Rumpel into a rabbit, but surprises everyone, along with himself, when Manticore appears instead, with Siegfried nervously commenting,
"Time to change the rabbit feed."
Roy causes a diversion, giving him, Siegfried, Manticore, and Estella the chance to escape until they encounter a dragon, which looks amazing. Its fearsome appearance, hidden under a crescent moon while breathing fire at the two, is exactly what you want to see, setting up for an atmospheric battle that's sure to dazzle. Unfortunately, all that happens is Siegfried shoots a baggie of sand into the dragon's mouth, distracting it for long enough to make their getaway. And that's a shame. I would have really liked for there to have been a battle waged between the dragon and the two men, watching them have natural chemistry in combat, or making mistakes and finding ways to work together would be great fun. But instead, we get neither. Pairing Roy's knowledge of real magic and Siegfried's ability to create stage magic to fool the dragon with illusions seems like an easy way to expand their characters and relationship. But there's plenty of movie to be had, and hopefully, further opportunities to see them in action. Estella goes in on trying to talk her father out of capturing Manticore, making it extremely personal, blaming his obsession with gaining more power due to feeling helpless over not being able to protect his wife from being kidnapped by Loki. That's some serious family drama, and an emotional punch I was not prepared for from this cartoon. It's pretty lofty to set up this kind of interpersonal turmoil, but I'm all for seeing how it plays out. Siegfried, Roy, Estella, and the King's Wizard meet up and look through the Book of Seroti, which recounts the events of Loki seizing the world's magic. There's a mix of video clips that play on some of the pages, but the biggest treat is the beautiful drawings. They're so detailed for a scene that lasts only a few seconds, but they look like authentic medieval art. Roy reveals Manticore as a transling, a magical being that can change into anything it wants, but the Titan stole the spirit that allows her to change, so unless he can find real magic, she'll be trapped in her tiger body, destined to grow old and die. Their mission is put on hold when Rumpel betrays the group, and the king orders them to use their supposed magic to set the spirits free from the Oracle of Frehia. In an effort to escape, the two cause an explosion, inadvertently allowing the evil within to be released, which consists of 4 specters that embody the worst of humanity: greed, envy, pride, and power. They're frightening to look at, and I say that in a complimentary way. Their unadulterated evil and their appearances perfectly reflect that. Envy inhabits the prince's body, swaying his mind into believing he should be king, and to get rid of anyone standing in his way. The two masks whisper nasty screams into his ears, and it's haunting, even altering the prince physically, this version of himself being seen when he's most suggestible to the spirit. Greed happens upon King Midas, offering to grant his innermost desire of being with his wife once more, but he refuses, admitting he now only cares for belongings because they can never leave him, ringing true to his daughter's words, showing what a broken man he is. Greed takes advantage of his weakness, imbuing him with the curse of making everything he touches turn to gold, which fits right in line with the real legend of King Midas. These scenes are scary without being graphic. Not enough to give anyone nightmares, but definitely to have a visceral negative reaction whenever they're on screen. The townspeople, under the impression the magicians purposely released the spirits, put them in a cart to be burned alive in a cave. But when the fire dies down, an ogre comes out, drawing the crowd's attention long enough for Siegfried and Roy to be rescued by Rumpel using the trapdoor in the bottom of the wagon. What a relief to find out that Rumpel was on their side all along. He's a solid sidekick, good-natured, gets in a number of funny lines, but doesn't exist solely to spout jokes. He's also money-hungry and sarcastic, which at times bothers other characters, such as when the princess asks for help, and he says,
No offense, Your Highness, but if we're busy helping you, there's nobody left to help us!
The 4 make their way back to the castle, and in a vulnerable moment, Estella claims she'd offer her hand in marriage to anyone who can free her father from his curse. Of course, the opportunistic Siegfried sees it as a chance to establish a permanent residency performing in the king's court. The writers did a wonderful job portraying this version of Siegfried, making him a slimy money grubber, but charismatic enough that you're hoping he'll succeed, just in a more honest way. He balances out finely against the noble-hearted Roy, who goes about doing everything in a truthful manner, though sometimes Siegfried's street smarts are needed to keep him upright. Back at the castle, the king attempts to eat, but literally everything he touches turns to gold, his food included, with Greed reveling that the king will starve to death as the richest king there ever was. That is brutal, with Greed heaping even more misery on him, saying that he shall feast upon his memory when he's gone. I can't state how much I am enjoying how malicious these spirits are. And their creepiness is elevated all the more because though they can be violent, they're more than happy to watch their victims' long, slow downfall by clouding their judgment. The heroes make their way back, with the king accidentally placing his hands on his daughter, turning her to solid gold. Her last words being, "Siegfried and Roy are our only hope," which is a sentence I never thought I'd hear uttered, even in the most fictional of works. The magicians square off against Greed, but as happened with the dragon, they don't fight. Instead, Siegfried throws a smoke bomb, and they run. I accept the realism that they can't defeat the spirit in one go, but every time they encounter danger, they just end up creating a decoy and make their escape. Maybe they don't want to associate Siegfried and Roy with any kind of violence, but their aptitude with illusions and trickery and sleight of hand seems like a natural way for them to deal with challenges. But each time they're faced with a problem, their solution is to run, which isn't the most exciting strategy to see played out repeatedly. The king's wizard informs the men that the only way to cure the king is to retrieve water from the river Pactolus. As they make their way, they encounter an ogre who steals Roy's gold brooch while almost taking his life in the process, saved only by Siegfried's quick acting. I've said it before, but there could have been so many memorable wars with these monsters. We've had a dragon, evil spirits, and now an ogre, and not one time have the men put up any fight. Elsewhere, the prince makes a deal with another ogre to attack the town and dispose of his sister, who stands in his way of fully claiming the throne. In a bittersweet development, the two ogres turn out to be mother and son, with the matriarch sick, not having enough gold to eat because of the king's curse, which is causing a shortage of gold across the land. I have to confess, as tragic as it is, I did laugh from the utter surprise at the eloquence of the male ogre's voice. The three make it to the river, which is also home to Medusa, who was once the most beautiful woman in the land, but now turns anyone to stone when they look directly into her eyes. She first appears to the men as a mirage of her former beautiful self, but when they make mention of retrieving the chained up manticore, she shows her true form, having the body of a snake, 2 snakes for hair, and a cobra's hood. She's fearsome, desperate to stop the men at any cost, in order to use the tiger's magic to maintain her beauty. The magicians put a plan into motion, first confusing her by sending out Jupiter, who she tries to turn to stone, shooting lasers from her eyes. And it's the funniest scene. The out-of-place sound effect with beams shooting from her eyes, bouncing off Jupiter's sunglasses. It's all fine. It's just a funny sequence, all of these things happening at once. They're able to trick her into gazing at herself in the mirror, and she screams, which is now my new favorite shriek in any movie. The celebration is cut short when they see the male ogre is destroying the town, but are able to bypass him and make their way to the king's chamber. They give him the elixir, which exorcises the phantom, and that distortion sound effect when he retreats is chilling. Outside, Pride continues to corrupt Loki, building up his ego that he's the greatest titan of all. I like that the characters in this movie can actually tell when someone is affected by an apparition. It can be so frustrating watching a show and a person is clearly not acting like themselves because they're under the control of an external force, but everyone thinks they're just having an off day. And this is a rare example of this type of situation being handled in a way that respects the characters and viewers' common sense. With the curse lifted, the king can now return the objects he's turned to gold back to their organic state. And as he's about to free his daughter, the ogre breaks in and snatches her away. There's a little more excitement this time, with Manticore and Roy trying to subdue the beast, but as good as the shot is seeing the ogre rappel down the castle wall, even the act of him throwing the two off of himself isn't that lethal, as Manticore and Roy land on the same pillow one after another, further leading me to believe they didn't want any sort of physical conflict to take place in the series. The magicians agree to rescue Estella for the king, while the prince uses the aid of a seeker to find their locations, and it's done in the grossest way. The seeker latches, then breaks off its tentacles onto the prince's eyes, and opens its mouth, revealing a giant eye. It's nasty, and honest to goodness, completely repulsive. He gains the ability to see through the giant eye, and commands the monster to find the magicians who are tracking the ogre. Along the way, Rumpel asks Siegfried why they're bothering to save Estella since she's just another girl whose heart Siegfried will break. And for the first time, we see Siegfried put on a serious face, claiming she's his future fiancée. It's amusing to me that his light flirting has turned into full-on love for him, and makes me think of how romances in medieval times are portrayed, with one fleeting glance or chivalrous act enough to make any person fall in love. She didn't even like him when they first met, but that's clearly okay for him. And in a weird way, it is kinda sweet to see him care about someone other than himself. The Seeker shoots fireballs at them, driving them underground where they find the ogres, who plan to melt down the golden Estella to eat. I'm sorry, but I have to draw special attention to the ogre's change in expression here, being one of the funniest animation errors I've had the pleasure of seeing in a long time, if not of all time. I'll never be able to forget that face. They cover Estella in the elixir, returning her back to normal and angering the ogre who tries to crush the humans. But the magicians bargain with the monster, telling him if he helps them reach the king's castle, they'll give him the treasure chest of gold the king was going to reward them with. Their idea doesn't go as planned, as they're apprehended by the still swayed prince, who orders them to be put to death. But Siegfried convinces the prince to let him live in exchange for giving him the tiger's magic. Their stage magic finally makes a reappearance, and with the use of mirrors, trapdoors, and slabs made from the walls of the oracle, they're able to trap the prince within the stones, which is the only material that can contain envy. This is the kind of creativity I've wanted to see throughout the show. Have them use illusions to defeat their foes. I'm fine with them not getting physical at all if they're going to use their own form of faux magic to outwit their enemies. That would more than do justice to the real Siegfried and Roy. The prince, now freed from envy, apologizes profusely for the pain he's caused, but his father is quick to note that with greed vanquished and envy trapped, they can finally be a family again. There could have been an amazing message about what each character was going through, but outside of the king, they aren't explored nearly enough. I love the attempted sentiment, I only wish it was taken further. The way King Midas was hurting over the loss of his wife, leading him down the path of greed, it would have been equally as compelling to see the prince grapple with his feelings about his father ruling, and then having them amplified by envy. It would have been so gratifying for each corrupted person to have a full circle arc, but they just narrowly missed on making that happen. Loki destroys their trap, taking all the spirits with him, including Manticore and Numa, to Endland, the world of the gods. With the power of the spirits controlled through a scepter, Loki travels to Zeus's palace, where King Midas's wife Alexa is being looked after by a living tree and a woman with a fish tank for a body, who now holds the mantle as the best character in this series. Loki captures Alexa, then crashes Zeus's meeting with Siegfried and Roy, bringing the god to his knees and sucking the life and magic from Endland. Zeus, now thoroughly weakened, agrees to return the magic to Seroti if they can stop Loki, sending them off in a 3D sphere. That brings me back to the times when animated TV series were still experimenting with CGI with varying results. Loki takes aim at Alexa with Cupid's arrow to make her fall in love with him. Unaware, Jupiter has snatched his scepter, followed by him swiping away the arrow in midair. Jupiter is awesome. I wish he would have gotten more screen time. He's the best. Siegfried and Roy wield the scepter, trapping envy and pride, and sensing defeat, greed pushes Loki into an orb that contains the full power of the spirits, which even the Titan admits he cannot physically contain. But it works, as he's able to retrieve his scepter and the spirits back, putting the heroes in a dire position. In a last-ditch effort to save everyone, Manticore rejoins with Numa, allowing her to transform into a creature more powerful than Zeus to defeat Loki, which makes sense since it is the spirit of power, but that's very strange to me that it can just turn into a being more powerful than one of the strongest gods. If Manticore can do that all the time, theoretically, no problem should be too big for her to handle. It sets a precedent that the characters have to abide by going forward, and making somebody have the ability to become all-powerful, that's gonna be a hard one to work around in the future. Manticore absorbs the spirits, and with Loki unable to contain the orb's power alone, explodes, which is so satisfying to see. The men stand before Zeus, ready to take Sermoti's magic and Alexa back. But Zeus, angered that they intend to take Alexa with them, sends them back to Seroti with the stipulation that the world's enchantments will not be returned all at once, which would make for a smart way to handle who has magic and who doesn't if the series were to continue. With the spirits still residing in Manticore, she sacrifices herself to keep them contained in the Oracle, or so it would seem, as she uses her translating powers to somehow save herself and destroy the spirits. Numa manages to separate itself during this, and Roy vows to find the necessary magic to reconnect the two permanently. and in a shocking turn, Siegfried agrees to accompany him, which he says he does in hopes of using his tiger in his act, apparently willing to leave the princess whose hand he'd won. The show is about these two, so they have to end up adventuring together, but it comes off as a bit hasty how they wind up thick as thieves by the end of all of this. There's no reason for Siegfried to accompany Roy any further. He accomplished everything he set out to do, and can now marry the princess or whatever else he pleases. The reason he gives to join him on his quest is because he still wants Manticore in his act. Have it so Siegfried was the one almost taken out by the ogre, so he feels indebted to Roy for saving his life, and he'll help repay him by reuniting Numa and Manticore. It's nonsensical for the two to continue on together in this capacity otherwise, though I suppose it matters little in the grand scheme. They ride off to a new horizon, with Rumpel giving the two a new stage name for their magic act: Siegfried and Roy, Masters of the Impossible. Siegfried and Roy, Masters of the Impossible, was a short-lived experiment, lasting 4 episodes, which played over the span of 4 consecutive days. Life went on for the real-world performers, though, continuing to headline their immensely popular live show in Las Vegas until 2003, when Roy was attacked by one of their tigers during their show, leading to the two retiring from show business altogether. In 2004, a new Siegfried and Roy cartoon would appear titled Father of the Pride, revolving around a family of lions that starred in the magician's act, but would only last for 1 season. Siegfried and Roy, Masters of the Impossible, is equatable to the best sleight of hand tricks. You go in expecting one thing and are blown away at the reveal. I assumed this show would be a low-effort product. At best, a corny show that went through the motions, wearing out every trope in the animated series book, and at worst, a vanity project for 2 people used to star treatment. So for this project to turn out to be as audacious as it was, I'm blown away. I do have some nitpicks about certain things. The lack of action definitely hurts, and more of a focus on Siegfried and Roy's budding friendship would have been welcome additions. But having said that, I love everything else about this series. The artwork is reminiscent of classic 80s television epics, and the voice acting, which I didn't even mention because of all the star power involved, is superb. In 2020, Roy would pass away, with Siegfried following the next year, but their legacy as entertainment icons is unquestioned, and for them to have a show that defied expectations, taking viewers on a ride as magical as their live shows, it proves that Siegfried and Roy were in fact masters of the impossible.